I guess I'll start by saying it's going to be tough to commit to that December 1st freeze. The odds are probably against it, but we'll cover that a little bit later here in the season. Weather-wise, I guess the theme today really, I think we have some changes to deal with, at least in the near-term future here that weren't really in the cards, and I'll explain that a little bit more here in just a second. But looking at the week in review, another warmer than normal week, and that sets up, again, a continuing theme that we've had during much of the 2020 growing season. Mean temperatures across the state here for the last week, generally from 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Less as you go north. There were several unusually cool days across upper Michigan and the far northern lower with breezes off of Lake Superior and northern Lake Michigan. It did contribute to that. We had several days that, again, not out of the 60s last week. But for most of the state, central and south, certainly another warmer than normal week. And our degree day accumulations, as a result, not surprisingly, still continue to be surplus for this time of the year. So most areas about a full calendar week ahead of schedule. And if you do the statistics and the climatology, we know more often than not if we have a surplus at the end of July or a deficit of degree days, we usually, more often than not, and it depends on the location, but many times as much as 70, even 80% of those seasons, we end up with that surplus or deficit. So right now, I guess it's a contrast to last year where we were scrambling with a very, very late plant and all of the problems we had with the spring last year and getting crops to maturity. That is, at this point in time, one would have to say is extremely unlikely. We should have a full growing season. That's usually a good thing for agriculture here in the state. Just as importantly here on the right-hand side, precipitation totals for the last week are highly variable across the state. And another continuing theme, we had heavy rain in northern sections of the state and the opposite. We had the lack of rain across the south. You can see here again, ranging from some cases more than 3-4 inches in across upper Michigan and the extreme northern lower, ranging to 0. And in most cases, we had less than 1/4 of an inch across the southern part of the state. One cluster of thunderstorms here late, or actually Monday evening into Tuesday morning, you can see a band, about a one county-wide band that fell from west to east. And that's one individual cluster led to that. I was on the extreme southern edge of that and got 5,300s. And it was somewhat unexpected because the rainfall was so scattered, but it's an example of just, again, sometimes it's great to be lucky, but we did get some meaningful rainfall out of that. But at the same time, as you can see just to the south of that, many areas received or recorded little or none. And following up on that, the amount of drought or abnormal dryness in Michigan, not surprisingly, especially in the central and southern lower, is expanding. The current drought monitor, and this is going to be updated here today, reflecting conditions this week, so we're take that into account. This is a week out of basically a week behind. But the big change last week was to upgrade sections of southeastern lower from the D0 abnormally dry to the D1 moderate drought category. That's the first time we've seen D1 in Michigan since last year. It's been a while. That's a good thing, but it does reflect, again, the increasing or intensifying dryness. On area-wise, about 38% of the state now is in either D0 or D1, and given the forecast, we probably will see some expansion in that here over the next week or two. Note that also Michigan's on the really on the northern and western fringe of a larger area of dryness, which covers sections of the eastern Corn Belt in particular. I mentioned here at the beginning there are changes ahead, and we've talked about several weeks in a row that expectation for this upper air pattern across North America, which includes a big broad ridge over the middle of the continent. That's a recipe for above normal or warmer than normal conditions, and we've seen that much of the growing season. But over the last several days, there has been the increased likelihood or development of a fairly, at least for mid to late summer, a very, very unusual troughing feature here across portions of the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. And you can see that this is a forecast of upper air conditions next Tuesday morning. So we're looking out several days, but this change is actually taking place now as we speak. And again, instead of having, we still have an upper air ridge here, but we also have almost in a split flow. It's rare to see split flow of the jet stream in really in the middle of summer, certainly in late July. It's something we typically see in the transition seasons of spring and fall, but not mid to late summer. But an unusually strong trough is forecast to form here. The models did not pick this up earlier. I guess it isn't a surprise given that it's rare for this time of the year, but it's looking very, very likely like this pattern will occur. And as a result, we will see some significant changes to our outlook, and then notably towards cooler temperatures than what you expected, and also, again, especially for the southern part of the state, unfortunately, probably drier than normal conditions as well. So in our outlooks here, we'll start with this morning. The frontal boundary that went through yesterday is now to our south across portions of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and washing out. What you're going to see here is a continuing theme for the next several days, but high pressure to the north of this, and then we've got this long frontal area here, which should stay generally south of Michigan and keep most of all of the precipitation to our south, at least for the foreseeable future, with, again, high pressure under control. For most of the state today, and actually the same case tomorrow and most of Saturday, we're looking at fair, dry, and seasonable temperatures, pretty close to where we should be this time of the year. High temperatures from the mid-70s in the far north to the low 80s. That's really close to what climatology says. And this is, right now, as I've also mentioned earlier, this is the warmest climatologically time of the year. We go downhill once we get past that first week of August. Low temperatures here generally in the 50s, so very, very pleasant conditions. Today and tomorrow will be ideal in most of the state with a lot of sun. There's an outside chance in the far southeastern part of the state that we might see an isolated shower pop up this afternoon, but it's almost not even worth mentioning. The vast majority of the state will be dry, fair and dry here for at least the next 2, if not 3 days. As we move here towards tomorrow morning, this is Friday at 8 a.m., you can see all of that activity to our south. At least for now, it remains there. And then the next weather system of note, we've got 2 of them actually we'll be looking at here for the weekend. One of them is up here to our northwest over southern Canada. And then this second one down here, that frontal boundary to our stalled frontal boundary to our south. By Saturday morning, you can see that system 1 up here in the northwestern part, that begins to influence western portions of upper Michigan. So I think we will see the chance for showers once again here, probably by late in the day and across the upper peninsula, and then that will gradually spread south and east during the day on Sunday, which brings in system number 2. And you can see that forming here over the Ohio Valley. This system is going to be moving north and east, and there's some disagreement among the forecast models as to how close this will get to Michigan. Some of the guidance moves it off to our east with very little influence or impact to Michigan at all, except maybe the southeastern corner of the state. One of the other forecast models that is typically fairly reliable, it does bring it up almost across Lake Erie or even southeastern lower Michigan, and it brings a significant amount of rainfall here Sunday and into Monday. So that's something we have to watch. I guess one would have to say lower confidence because not all of the models are telling the same story. But for now, officially, 2 chances for rain. The primary one, though, initially is going to be this one to our west and north. And then secondly, we'll put a question mark on that one. That could lead to some significant rainfall, especially over southeastern lower Michigan. And that, of course, in many cases, that would be something beneficial given the dryness here. So something to keep an eye out. That's our next chance for major precipitation. After both those systems move beyond us, and that would be by Monday, you can see right off the map here, there's a big area of high pressure over Canada. That moves in and sets the stage for probably a fair, dry, cool week next week. And again, this wasn't in the cards even a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but it's looking like we will have a cool, dry week with even below normal temperatures, probably for about a week, maybe even longer than that. But at least for that first week of August, it's looking like it will start, the month of August will start cooler and drier than normal for most of the state. Precipitation totals forecast through next Thursday morning, mostly drier than normal conditions across the state in the region, really. Less than 1/4 inch in northern parts of the state to as much as a half or maybe a little bit better than that. Most of this precipitation, especially you see here in the southeast, that is that question mark and it reflects the uncertainty about that second system. And if it clips portions of southeastern lower Michigan, that would again be on Sunday and into Monday. We'll see on that one. Right now, if you had to put a gun to somebody's head, probably most of the guidance is suggesting that it misses us to the south and east, but that possibility is certainly there. Still likely for most of the state to be a drier than normal week coming up, and again with temperatures trending downwards as well. Now we talked about the dryness, and of course for many areas that is not a good thing, but on some buffering to that, or some, I guess, give and take here on a positive side, given the cooler temperatures, our potential evapotranspiration rates will also be decreasing. And you can see weekly totals here, generally less than 1.2 inches. That's below normal for late July, early August. So generally here between 0.15 maybe to 0.18 or so inches per day. And again, that's a reflection of the cooler temperature. So yes, it's the dryness is not a good thing, but at least it could be worse if we had hot temperatures. The water demand would be higher. The stress levels would be significantly higher than they would be. And it also, given this type of weather pattern, the nights will be cool. So there will be time for our crops and so forth to get some relief during the nighttime hours. So that's a more of a positive thing. Medium range forecast guidance is now reflecting the changes that I just talked about in the upper air, the jet stream forecast. This is for the 6 to 10 day time frame, the 4th through the 8th, and you can see this big trough here, sort of as a split feature. The ridge is still there, and I would say too, it's important. Most of the guidance suggests that ultimately that does become the dominant feature once again, maybe by the middle of the month and longer. And still, all the longer term outlooks still do call for warmer than normal, but we are looking at least a temporary change, maybe a week or so of cooler than normal temperatures. And you can see that now in our the forecast here, mean temperatures over much of the Corn Belt and up into Michigan and the Great Lakes forecast to be below normal for this time frame, and also drier than normal conditions underneath that trophic feature. So a significant change from where we've been. How long it lasts is still unclear. The 8 to 14 day outlook, I would also note here, does call already for temperatures to bounce back in the period following this, but it's low confidence. The guidance is not consistent from day to day. So I would plan on at least a week to a week and a half of this weather change during that first 7 to 10 days of August. So summarizing here again, beautiful conditions here at least for the near term future. The next chance for rain coming beginning late Saturday evening in the north, and then spreading south on Sunday and into early Monday. Still a question mark maybe for the southeastern part of the states that might see that second weather system with a little bit more precipitation totals, but it will be in general a drier than normal week. The temperatures remaining near normal for the time being, but then dropping back to below normal levels here by the early part of next week, and probably continuing for much of next week. And you just saw that too with the medium range forecast guide. So a change of pace, but ultimately we'll revert back to where we've been maybe by the middle of the month. So I'll wrap it up there and introduce next week's speakers and invite you to attend next week. Our speakers actually get a tag team effort here next week with Lyndon Kelly and Marty Chilvers, and they're going to be talking about irrigation and plant diseases for the leadoff portion of our breakfast next week. So be with us for that. And with that, I think I'll wrap up and turn it back to Sarah and see if there are any questions. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
If I can ask a question over the phone.
Sure.
Jeff, is there any forecast of rain for several days? If we put a cover crop in, it would be able to get established.
In the immediate future, you're talking about?
After the wheat's harvested.
Oh, how soon are you? Any ideas on when that's when you're hoping to finish that up?
Oh, we're already finished on some fields.
It's going to be a little dicey. At what part of the state?
Some.
I would say that there's a good chance that we will see some rainfall here late in the weekend and early next week. That's really the best chance that you're going to see for precip. You're looking at dry conditions probably through Sunday, or at least the first part of Sunday, and then again by the overnight hours, early Sunday, into Monday, that's when we'll see the next best chance. But right now, there are not any. Again, it doesn't look like any large, widespread rainfall events. That's your next chance. If we miss the rainfall on Sunday, Monday, you're probably then looking at another several-day spell without for at least the work week, and then maybe into the following weekend. So we are in a drier than normal pattern, which is going to complicate things a little bit. It would be nice if you're trying to harvest forage or put hay on the ground, but for planning and trying to get the water or incorporate, there just aren't going to be that many chances here over the next 1 to 2 weeks. But I'd say Sunday, Monday is one of them, and then possibly the following weekend from the guidance right now.
If I can ask a follow-up question to Dean,
Sure.
then. Dean, would it be prudent to try to catch this one possible rain event for Sunday, Monday, or do we wait until it's more likely to have 3 or 4 days of small rains in a row, get the cover crop established?
Part of it depends on how you're looking at planting it. If you're looking at drilling it, you get protection from the soil. So if it doesn't turn out to be quite as big a rain as we had hoped, the seed's still protected, and we'll probably do okay waiting for the next rain. If you're broadcasting, or in some cases people aerial seed, where you've got the seed sitting on the ground, the absolute worst thing that can happen is that you get a really light rain and you get just enough moisture to germinate it, but not enough to sustain it and get a root down. And a lot of times you will lose that cover crop. So I think if you're drilling it, putting the seed in the ground, I would say you should be okay doing that. But if you're broadcasting, I would be really cautious of broadcasting under that scenario.
Thanks, guys.
And just to throw this in too, if for the thumb here this weekend, I would say you're looking probably at about 50-50 odds of seeing precip. So, throw the quarter in the air. And precip amounts, probably a couple tenths, a quarter of an inch would be the expected amount if you do if you're lucky enough to be under one of those showers.